Listen to part of a lecture in an ecology class.
So, let's start. There are an amazing number of ways that creatures, protect themselves from predators, animals that would eat them. So today, we're going to talk about some of the more ingenious adaptations that a certain insect uses to deter predators. We're going to talk about moths. Now, moths might not seem like the most interesting insects in the world. Most of them are rather dull, especially when you compare them to their glamorous cousins, the butterflies. Moths, they don't sting like bees, they aren't industrious like ants, and yet I've made them the topic of today's lecture. The reason being that the lowly moth can offer us a truly fascinating glimpse of some strategies for avoiding predators. Strategies for staying alive that nature has developed through evolution. So, one of the moth's earliest developments in its quest for continued survival was to become a nocturnal creature. That is, an animal that is primarily active by night. They did this for one simple reason: to avoid birds. Birds are obviously great predators of moths and are active mostly during the day. So when the birds are hunting, the moths sleep. When the birds sleep, the moths become active. A simple yet effective avoidance technique. Things got a bit more complicated when bats evolved. Of course, that was millions of years ago. But the predators, bats, they affected the way some moths evolved. Some species of moths dealt with this new development by evolving structures, ear structures, that allow them to hear a bat's sonar. When they hear a bat hunting with its sonar, they can try to hide or fly away. And there's another kind of moth, a type that tastes bad and a bat wouldn't want to eat anyway. That makes a high-pitched sound to warn bats away. It basically warns bats that it's a meal that a bat wouldn't enjoy. Tiger moths use a similar strategy, one that is also employed by some butterflies. Because tiger moths are toxic, they use bright colors to advertise their inedible nature. Other moths they've simply evolved color patterns that mimic the patterns of poisonous butterflies, even though they are not toxic themselves. When an animal signals its inedibility to predators in this way, they're said to be warningly colored. Now, perhaps...
Excuse me, sorry. Could you go back for a minute? I don't get that part about warning colors.
Okay, exactly what don't you understand?
Well, I understand that the bright colors warn predators away, but how do birds know that those bright colors mean something toxic? Do they learn it from other birds or something?
Well, no. There aren't any bird schools that they go to, if that's what you're asking. Predators learn through experience, but generally through their own. If they try to eat a tiger moth and it doesn't taste very good, or it makes them sick, they'll recognize that color pattern and avoid it next time. Sure, the first tiger moth might not survive the initial tasting, but it will have sacrificed itself so that its fellow tiger moths can survive. Remember, evolution. Evolution isn't so much about protecting an individual. It's about ensuring the survival of the species, okay?
Okay, got it.
Good. Now, where was I? Ah, yes, coloration. It is perhaps the most common form of defense. There's warning coloration, as I mentioned, and other kinds too, like camouflage. Many moths blend in with the bark of local trees, or are colored to resemble bird droppings. Others have dull-colored wings with brightly colored undersides. When they suddenly spread their wings to fly away, the flash of bright colors can startle a predator and give the moth a much-needed head start to escape. There are even moths that have patterns on their wings that resemble eyes. Some have large fake eyes resembling owl eyes, which are used to scare off curious predators. Others have smaller fake eyes on the ends of their wings, designed to fool predators which try to attack the moth's head or the middle of its body, their most vulnerable areas. Most moths can survive an attack to their wings and subsequently escape. Another defense mechanism that moths have evolved, a defense against being ensnared in a spider's web, are wing scales. Have you ever touched a moth's wings? Your fingers come away with a sort of powdery substance on them. These are wing scales, and they keep a moth's wings from sticking in the web of a spider. So, as you can see, the dull little moth isn't quite so dull after all. And they're just one example of the variety of defense techniques that we find in nature. Techniques designed to deter predators and allow a species to survive.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer. Number 12. What aspect of moths does the professor mainly discuss? Number 13. According to the professor, why did moths become nocturnal creatures? Number 14. How does the professor illustrate the idea that evolution is about preserving species, not protecting individuals? Number 15. According to the professor, what are two functions of the false eyes found on the wings of some moths? Click on two answers. Listen again to part of the lecture. Then answer the question.
Now, moths might not seem like the most interesting insects in the world. Most of them are rather dull, especially when you compare them to their glamorous cousins, the butterflies. Moths, they don't sting like bees. They aren't industrious like ants.
Number 16. What does the professor mean when she says this?
Now, moths might not seem like the most interesting insects in the world.
Listen again to part of the lecture. Then answer the question.
Another defense mechanism that moths have evolved, a defense against being ensnared in a spider's web, are wing scales. Have you ever touched a moth's wings?
Number 17. Why does the professor say this?
Have you ever touched a moth's wings?